let's talk a little bit about spreading yourself thin and like where to focus, right? Because like you're writing a book, you have like your main Substack, you're creating a new Substack for the book so you could use the notes, and then you have LinkedIn. And then also maybe some DMs to keep business going or whatever. And we're obviously right now at the end of the year too. So where's your head at right now with all this stuff?
Yeah. Yeah, so as we go into the new year and this, it's like as I was like briefly telling you before there, it's like I've kind of like at least over this holiday season, I kind of just like fell over the cliff in terms of my LinkedIn. I'm still posting on there, right? But there's a big difference between just, posting once a day on a platform and actually like sort of living and breathing on a platform, which I find is actually so key because I've noticed that like my LinkedIn impressions, although I'll still get some posts that do really well. I was telling you about one where it was just, catchy hook. Actually something about Colombia, like I closed a $4,000 deal in a cafe, whatever. And that ended up driving like 10,000 impressions. It was like a 30 to 50 word post that took me like 2 minutes to write, and edit and refine. And it included a link over to Substack, which they, of course, they say never include links in your posts, right? Because you'll get punished. Well, I guess it didn't affect that one anyway. So but yeah, there's a big difference between just posting once a day on a platform and actually doing what's really required if you want to like optimize it for growth and high engagement and all this. It's actually made me, it's a reminder of how much like growing and having high engagement on a platform like LinkedIn really takes. Because I have seen my impressions drop because I'm just not spending as much time on there. So um I do see myself spending more time on Substack in the new year. I think especially with some of my goals around like writing this novel and that, like I definitely think that Substack is more the place for that.
Mm.
But of course, LinkedIn at the same time is like the place where I'm probably most likely to get my next ghostwriting client, right? So it is going to be
Need both.
both. Yeah. How about
Yeah.
you?
I'm probably gonna be I kind of got a little like hyped on Substack and started going over there a little bit more, and then the holidays have kind of thrown things off a little bit too for me.
Yeah.
I need to start doing a lot more like DMs, like at least getting in the habit of doing like 10, 15 DMs a day because I kind of completely dropped the ball on that. So I want to like start back up that again. And then just actually just being more consistent too, like on LinkedIn and not just like treating it like the stepchild or whatever, just trying to like go back in there. And it's like really easy just to be like, oh, fuck it. Like I'm done with LinkedIn or whatever. And like want to just go hang out on Substack because a lot of the times too, I feel like the writing is just so boring on LinkedIn besides like our friends and like you guys and the people that I know that are like other creators or whatever. But from the people that are still like in like W-2s or like still like in the work world, their writing is pretty boring. So I think that it's not necessarily boring because of like who they are as people. It's just because like we mentioned on other things that there's some conflicts of interest. But yeah, I'm starting to I didn't do a whole lot of I was on Beehive like a year ago doing some newsletters like weekly and I kind of dropped doing those again, but I'm starting to get back into like long form content again. And for me, it's been a little bit cathartic. Like I wrote about one this week about a band called Wolf Parade. They're actually Canadian. And this guy describes a scene about like where he wants to take this, I'm assuming a girl, to some place where no one gives a fuck about who you are and no one cares like what your name is. Like it's almost like this sense of like, we're not famous or anything like that, but I can imagine if you're famous, like having that anonymity, being in like a new city and like not knowing like who gives a fuck who you are, like just be here or whatever. So I got really inspired by like that song and that lyric, and I like wrote like a whole like 300 word post or like letter on that. And
Was
I
that
don't know,
just
I feel
300
like
words?
I think it was
Just
like
300
300
words?
word too. Yeah, but it's interesting too because I feel like that stuff it forces you to like think a little deeper, and then sometimes when it is a little bit longer, it does. I'm getting used to that style of writing again, so I'm sure too for the book. That's kind of almost like your other Substack publication could almost be like maybe you could do it in such a way that like every month is like a chapter or something, or every 2 weeks or every week, or however the cadence is. So basically, each newsletter is like, all right, here's chapter one, here's chapter. Maybe it's not the whole thing or whatever, but it's kind of interesting to systemize things in that kind of way,
So
if possible.
yeah, so what I ended up doing, um, Yeah, so yesterday I created the new Substack because I came to the realization that if I wanted to have Substack notes
Yep.
that I was going to need. You can hear me okay, right? I just got my phone
Yeah.
kind of like okay.
Yeah.
Um
Subsec notes.
yeah. Um if I wanted to have Substack notes, which of course are like this amazing way for people to like discover you and stuff, and it's like sort of the growth engine of Substack, right? In order to have those, I came to the realization I have to create an entirely new Substack, not just another publication, right?
Mm.
Because I've seen people actually. One of them here is even on the call, like Ryan Voorhees, who's on the call right now. He's got multiple publications on his one account, right? So it's Ryan Voorhees, and he's got like I think one is called No Shots Fired for him, right? So he's got three different publications on one page. That's great, right? That's awesome. But I thought to myself, well, problem is I'm not going to get any of that like distribution from the notes as well. So I'm like, I think I actually have to create an entirely different Substack with another domain and all this. So I created another Substack called like Danger in the Valley, which by the way is like a working title of what my book might be called.
Mm.
We'll see. But it's funny too because as you're writing like a novel like this, you just slowly inch your way towards actually telling people more about what it's about. And it's like even dropping the potential like name of the book was a step for me as well. Cause I
Oh
in the
yeah.
beginning, I'm like, I don't want to tell anybody anything about it,
Yeah.
like just that it's maybe gonna be based about or based on Colombia. And then like a couple days later, it's like, okay, maybe I'll tell them it's about Medellin specifically. Okay, I'll create a Substack called Danger in the Valley. Okay, maybe I'll say that it's like not the Pablo Escobar Medellin, but it's this new modern like Medellin, and it's a crime thriller. So you get closer and closer. But yeah, and then you mentioned like oh maybe you could like release another chapter of the book. Well, it's interesting because the I actually already put out a newsletter. Like, what do I have to lose? I don't have any subscribers on that page yet. So I put out a newsletter last night at like 11:30 p.m. Published a newsletter, and like it's going to be probably chapter one of the book is going to be something similar to what I put out as the newsletter, right? Which also brings up another thing too, where it's like the idea of like posting something even if it's not completely perfect. This is this was a good example of that because like what will the actual chapter look like when all is said and done? It might be something based off that first newsletter, but it will change. It will be refined. But you have to be okay with that, with like putting out work out there that's like not like 100% like absolutely flawless, right? And
Yeah.
that was an example because something like a book, man, social media post is one thing, but you can get a lot more in your head about a book because you want it to be absolutely like perfect and
Flawless.
just like yeah.
Yeah. I completely get that. It seems a little, I've never written a book before, but it just seems like it could be very overwhelming, the amount of things you could not say. It seems like it'd be a lot about like what to remove and like what the theme is of the book, like the overall theme and like what attracts to that theme and like what removes from it. And am I saying something just because I liked it or because it actually adds to the book? So I could, but I like what you said too about like Pablo Escobar and like that kind of time period for like Colombia because Colombia is so rich with like this crazy history of like cocaine and like drug abuse and like who the fuck knows what it's like now. I'm sure it's nothing like that, like what we like think of is in our heads. And I think a lot of people are even scared to try. I'd go travel down there, and it's cool that you're living down there. But I think that a lot of people that are like not traveled that are Americans and some Canadians are probably like, oh, I'm scared to go to Colombia and Beijing and you're down there and you're living it up there, and I'm sure that it's a lot more cosmopolitan than people would realize.
Yeah, so I think that my book, what it's going to be kind of about is that like, yeah, Med- like a place like Medellin, it is a lot more, um, it is a lot more livable and all that now. You know what I mean? It's not like you know Pablo Escobar days. It was like car bombs and stuff like this going off because they were like trying to go after like political figures in this, but a lot of innocent people got killed as well, right? So it's not exactly those days, right? There, but my book is going to highlight that there still is this like criminal underbelly that exists in Medellin, right? And in all of Colombia still. And something I also decided is that, and this was a bit of an epiphany when it hit me, is that I should have like a tourist character in the book.
Hmm. That's
And
cool.
the
I like that
tourist,
idea.
yeah, yeah. The tourist character is also going to be somewhat based off of my character. Like, uh, not maybe not to a T. Like there might be some stories that are exaggerated or, but it will all kind of be based off of stuff that I have actually seen in Medellin or experienced, or at least know this does exist, right? Like, so yeah.
I hear that the book cover is like really important. Is like half the.
Mhm.
I don't know if it's half the battle. Obviously, what's in the book is really important, but for to get people to actually look at it and buy it, I hear a lot of people will just like look at the cover and then maybe even just crack open the first page and like look to see what's on the first page to see if it even gets their interest. So I don't know. Like someone was saying too that if you could tell the whole story within like a sentence, like that's a good idea too. Like to be able to be like, oh, this girl got killed and then became I don't know what the story, whatever the story might be, but like something that's like crazy, like crazy stakes, crazy impactful, maybe some sort of crazy transformation or whatever, but packed into like a sentence. It seems like
Man, you're getting like this. This is how I know that this is I think a good idea for like for me to continue to pursue this and follow through with this
right.
is because like I because I can kind of think about what that might be for my book, right? And even the cover, I kind of know what I would use as the cover. Like it, the thing about Medellin is that so my book might be called Danger in the Valley, right? So Medellin is based in like this. I might pronounce this wrong, but it's like the Abura Valley, right? So it's just surrounded by like mountains and stuff, which creates like when you're driving into the city from the airport and stuff, it's absolutely like beautiful, right? Like you're kind of like looking down into this valley from the winding roads up there, right? As you drive down into it, and it's just all lit up, like for just like hundreds of miles, let's say. And yeah, so that I think that the cover of my book would probably I think it's just going to be that valley, right? But like which then would be complementary to the title, Danger in the Valley. Um and yeah, I guess I won't go into much more than that, but yeah, you got the
How
wheels
long do you think
turning.
that it's going to take you to like I guess how do you think about it organically too? From like, do you outline this thing from the beginning, or do you kind of do it as you go, or like, I've never written a book like I mentioned earlier, so I was just curious to see how you approach such a big project and how you approach even like long form content in general. Because I've seen your writing for a while now, over at least over a year, and I know you're really good at like long form content and like getting ideas out that are longer. Not every writer is like good at that, right? A lot of people are just good at like tweets and like quick observations, short form, kind of like ruffling feathers or whatever. And I think that long form is a little bit of a different beast in general. So I'm just wondering how you approach it.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, with like LinkedIn, for example, it's like for a while there, I was very much in the habit of like writing even, 600 to maybe even, I think you get capped at like, you'd be lucky if you can get 800 words into a LinkedIn post. I think it might be closer to like 600 or so, but I would often kind of like max out those LinkedIn posts in terms of the character limit. I was doing a lot of like long form carousels and that kind of thing. I was more in the habit of doing long form stuff, and it was more rare for me to do anything under like 150 words. But that's like when you think about something like a novel, that's that's nothing, right? Like man, like and even so I'm lucky that I kind of like developed that muscle of like writing the long form stuff because yeah, I can write like, 500 words, 600 words or 1,000 words like pretty quick. Especially with the way now is like we like you as well, I believe. We use so much voice to text for
Hmm.
writing anyway. So whether it's voice to text or just like opening up a Google Doc and just like going for it, like I kind of feel like, 500 words is nothing. And when you're writing like a novel, that's nothing. Um, but you asked about like the long form writing and that, right?
I guess it's easy for me, especially like when I'm thinking of a novel, right? Like it's easy to get lost in some of the ideas if I don't have
Mm,
enough time
yeah.
in my. To me, I feel like if I have enough time in my hands on anything, I'm fine, right? If I have like a day to process it, to come back and look at it, but a lot of the times I'm not building enough like like a buffer into my processes. Like for example, like I might read a newsletter in an hour, right? I'm not like sitting there like fucking with it the next day and a day. It could be a lot better if I did, right? If I actually gave time something to do and then like looked at it from a different angle where I'm not just getting ADD and like wanting to ship things. So I think that baking in time is something that I'm going to try to do more of, although it's going to be aspirational. I don't know if it'll actually happen, but I think the more time that you do have, the better things get. I was wondering, do you think that too, or
I actually have mixed feelings on that because I for at least for like social media writing for myself, for my personal brand, not so much for clients. I would have like sort of like more of a step-by-step process in this because it just made for yeah, for a more systemized approach works, especially when you have multiple clients. It's like, okay, let's write the first drafts, then, come back for the edits and all that. I think that does make sense. Um, but for myself, much more, much more in the habit of like writing something, editing it immediately after and posting immediately after, right? Um, so I'm good at that, and I think that with that, like, you kind of capture your content feels more like a daily epiphany or something, which I kinda like. It's like how
right?
you ended up writing a newsletter about that song, right, with that chorus that inspired you, and that just probably
Yeah,
happened, like, on the day, right?
yeah. It's like on the day, and I was like, oh, and I also felt like it's cool for when you have that inspiration, and if one person took the time and actually like listened to the song and actually got something out of it. I think that because I'm sure that there's times where you're jamming out in your car and you're like, there's something about the way that artist made that hook and like and you're a musician too, so like I think when you hear that, like musicians and Will on the call is a musician. He's a piano player. He rips. Like I don't know if you've seen that
Oh,
guy play
cool.
it, but he's really good.
I'll check them out.
But it's like, yeah, it's it's really it's interesting because like I play music too, and like I feel like music is a good thing of like tension and release and resolve and like kind of building. And I think having musicality does help in like writing, like having rhythm and
Mm.
having some sort of timing, choppy sentences, like I don't know, thoughts that might leave you hanging at times, and like I know I look to music quite often for like inspiration.
Oh, yeah. Man, yeah, music is a great example too because okay, music's a great example because you like let's say you listen to the chorus of a song. The chorus of a song is gonna be, like, very hooky, right? It's probably gonna be punchy. It's not gonna be as descriptive as the verse, where the verse might go into some, like, visual or, like, visceral description of something where the guy's, like, painting a scene, right, Maybe he's talking about, like, the streets of London or something like this or whatever, but then the chorus is just gonna be, like, more of that big, broad message where he might just be singing about, like, love and, like, this girl that broke his heart or something like this, right? But it's gonna be more clear, probably more clear exactly what he's talking about and more of a universal type message than, again, like the verse or the bridge or something where he takes you down like he takes you on some winding turns in this. He paints more of a picture. So it's like that too with writing too. And actually, especially with like something like fiction writing, where you have to have those two different tools in your tool belt. Where sometimes you want to be like right to the point, and it's like it's moving fast and all this, but other times you have to paint more of a picture. Actually, I've written about that recently, and it's why I started reading more fiction novels again. And it's just so happens that I found this used bookstore up here in Northern Ontario that I've gone to like twice now in the last week, and picked up these books for like, I swear to God, some of them are like $3 to $4 a piece, or like
Yeah,
$7 for like some classic book that's still in good condition and everything.
that's pretty dope. You gonna tear through all that, or how often do you spend reading, or do you kind of like just read when you can, or do you make time for it?
So when I was down in South America, uh, for just 4 months there, I had no physical books with me, and I am not currently a Kindle guy. However, that might change very soon.
Sure.
My sister asked me, "Is there anything that you'd want for Christmas?" I'm like, "Actually, yeah, there is one. There is one thing. Maybe a Kindle." And I hadn't even looked up prices of Kindles or anything like that, but I've seen people talk about them more. Like, I'm pretty sure Kush Shaw has one. I saw he like used it for some post he did on LinkedIn. I think Alina, who's on this call, might have one too. But yeah, people have these Kindles, and while I don't think it is as good as reading a physical book, because I think nothing beats that, right? Um, but it's the next best thing, maybe. So,
Yeah.
man, I have not been reading enough in recent years, aside from, and this is bad, aside from people's social media posts, which, you know, it's it's good, but it's a different type of writing. You're not going to read someone's LinkedIn post where they're going to take you on some winding turns and paint a picture for you and all that, right? So in a way, you're not using, and actually, this is what I titled my newsletter. I called it the fiction muscle, which is more creative and visceral and painting more of a picture, right? So you're not using that part of your brain. So I'm gonna start. I'm really starting to go heavier into reading more fiction as well. Yeah.
What about like your ideas for your like weekly newsletters? Are those usually just sparks that happen, and do you have like a list of things that you already like have that you want to write about, and you're kind of queuing those up, or is it kind of more just like random in the moment? Like I'm inspired by that song lyric, and I'm gonna just bang out a newsletter right now on that. Is that? I'm assuming you're the more the second one, the latter.
Um, for the yeah, for newsletters, it's a bit of a mix. It is sometimes based off of epiphanies. It is sometimes based off of epiphanies, but um, I kind of collect ideas more and take a more organized approach that way. And sometimes I will actually test ideas by first of all doing them as a Substack note, right? And if they perform well, then I'll kind of consider it to be a validated idea, and then I'll turn it into a newsletter. So
Yeah, like that reminds me actually, I think you're one about Columbia making the 4 grand like in a cafe as a ghostwriter. That became, I believe, a newsletter on your thing too. And I think that started probably as like because it took off as a note. Now I'm realizing too that notes, like you mentioned earlier on the call, it is sort of like a great top of funnel way of getting noticed on Substack, and they can get deeper. It's almost like hooking people and then hooking them into your like little system in any way you can, and then they kind of just get deeper and deeper into your rabbit hole. Is kind of it seems like what happens.
yeah. Have you been doing that as well? Like where you test something as a note and then turn it into a newsletter? Or?
I haven't like specifically done that exact path, but I'm definitely aware of it for sure. Like I have like I created for my own personal process, I have something called like a one liner in Claude, and I basically it's just
Mm,
like almost like a tweet, and I'll just be
mm.
like walking around like a couple mile walk or whatever, and just I might have just some like random idea that'll pop up into my head, and then I'll just be like, oh, I'll speak into the thing and ask for like 20 versions of that, and then just kind of like look at them and like take pieces of each of it and make it into my own kind of words. And like a lot of times those notes might only take me like a minute or two to write because I'm not like I'm just kind of walking. And I've noticed too that a lot of the great writers of anytime, a lot of the times they would have like this incubation period where they wouldn't be thinking about the thing that they were doing. Like it's almost like
Mm.
this weird thing where like you think that like by going out there and doing the thing consistently that it's going to be make it better, when sometimes like I feel like writing and creative processes in general sometimes are good for like a little break, moving away from the thing and then coming back to it is what I've realized for my own self. Because it's I think it's like taking advantage of your subconscious mind into like being able to allow your subconscious to really process everything and allow it to have come up with like the best ideas, and those usually only happen in my experience through actual time.
Yeah. I 100% agree. And actually, there's something I would say about that just from sort of this, you know, kind of journey into writing the novel in this, right? Is that that's kind of I think been the approach even with like the say the development of the chapters in this is that when you when you step away from it and then come back to it, step away from it, come back to it, and keep kind of like fleshing it out each time, then you have these epiphanies. And one of my epiphanies was actually that, like, for example, I had this scene that of like this tourist arriving in Medellin like for the first time and how it's just like this like whole other world and it's kind of like it's almost like overwhelming in this way and like he has this Uber driver drop him off in like the sort of like heart of the like the tourist trap like metropolitan area of the city and as soon as he gets out of the Uber with like all of his like with a backpack and like his like and like bags and like traveling case and all this. So just like an absolute, he just like looks like a tourist. And 30 seconds after getting out of the Uber, he's got somebody asking him if he wants drugs and this and like, so that was going to be like, I was originally thinking that might be a later chapter in the book, but then I'm like, no, I think that might actually be the first chapter because it's like way more exciting and you're sort of like thrown into the world of this tourist. So you're seeing it from the eyes of a tourist. And if you've never been to Medellin, well, you're just getting a taste of the city like right off the bat. And then it also plays with the whole theme. If it's called Danger in the Valley, you're thrown immediately into this valley and it's like you sort of you get introduced to the city before you get introduced to the what the real theme of the book is, which is more of like a crime thriller with like cartel bosses and that kind of thing, right? So um
What's up with Colombia being like cocaine? Is it just because that coca plant grows well there, or like what? I mean, I don't know if you know that answer, but like, what's up with like why it became such a cocaine noteworthy place around the world?
yeah, that would definitely be a part of it. It definitely, yeah, it definitely has to do with like climate and that they're able to grow it well down there and all of that. Um, I think I'm under the. It's not just obviously it's not just like Colombia. It's very, from my understanding, it's also it's countries like Bolivia, Ecuador. Um, so I guess it grows well down there. I guess another thing. Hmm. Plus, I guess there's a lot of open land there for them to do that, and it probably also comes back to politics at the end of the day as well. That yeah,
Well, the drug cartels are probably bringing money into the cities in some sort of respects, I'm assuming too. So it's like this weird balance, I'm sure, of like, I've even heard of like the cartels that in like Mexico, they'll like say like apologies and things for like, oh, sorry, we didn't mean to blow that person up. It was an accident. We meant to hit someone else. Or it's a really weird thing, I think, in some of these third world countries where like the drug dealers have become so powerful that they're almost like part of the government.
I think that yeah. See, I think that's another part of it is that in some of these countries like Colombia or Mexico, there's kind of a thing where the cartels might be either as like almost as powerful as government and maybe sometimes more. Uh, and that definitely, I think that definitely plays a factor as well. Um, yeah. Mhm.
You haven't had any troubles being like a white dude though, because you seems like you probably stick out pretty easily in that neck of the woods. You know,
Yeah,
just
that which also is
just the
like
beard.
that's part of the that initial scene too, where it's I even say that like where he gets out of the Uber and I say like pale skin, red beard, like just, yeah. There was a line I put in the newsletter. It's like he might as well have had like Target written on his forehead or something like this, right? Which yeah, and sometimes when you're down in these places like you kind of sometimes, especially the more you get off the beaten track, it's like people look at you sort of like maybe as if they've never seen a white person before or something. Obviously not if you're in like Medellin or like Bogota or the major cities, but especially I was just in Paraguay, and there are like some places in Paraguay where you really stand out. Like they probably actually have not seen many people who look like you. So
Interesting.
yeah.
Yeah, I've never been to Paraguay or Uruguay. Are they similar to? Obviously, they're completely different, but like traveling around South America, like how have the different cities been? Out of curiosity, from like one city to the next and country to the next.
So Uruguay and Paraguay actually are quite well. I've never been to Uruguay, but I've heard like Uruguay and Paraguay are quite different in that like I've heard Uruguay is a pretty like more like ritzy sort of like wealthier uh country in South America. It's it might be considered one of the sort of like richest most sort of like wealthy countries in South America. Um yeah, yeah. Yeah, so that's kind of like but they have some similarities too, like and like cultural similarities, you know, Argentina, Uruguay, Paraguay, they all have that like asado and like steak culture. They all have that like there's this drink they drink down there called like mate, right? They all drink that.
Mm.
So there's
See,
similarities like that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, the I like all the steak and all that kind of. It seems like the food there looks pretty amazing from your Bolton bites. I know I've seen some of your food from all over the place, but a lot of the steaks look delicious, and I'm sure that they're probably pretty affordable. Like in the States, you pay quite a bit, like sometimes what, like $30 to $100 for a steak. I'm sure there it's probably a
Yeah,
fraction of that, right?
man, it's crazy, dude. Like if you yeah, once you have steak down there or like the whole experience, buying it at the grocery store, maybe you if you like cook it yourself, whatever it might be, but it's the best steak in the world, man. Paraguay, best steak in the world in my opinion. Like I think they just have like the highest quality like beef farms, and they actually apparently they supply a lot of other countries in the world as well. Like they definitely supply places like Brazil, and like they probably even supply Argentina. But yeah, I really, in terms of quality of beef and stuff, I'd probably put like Paraguay as number one. Like, it'd be a uh, battle between Argentina and Paraguay.
Yeah,
Um,
I went to Argentina once and had some steak there and went to like a soccer game. It was fucking amazing. I actually went down to like South America, hiked like Machu Picchu for a couple days, got super sick from the altitude at Cusco. And then remember just like walking up, seeing this cool like knitted wear from like these Peruvian ladies, like wild llamas, and it just felt like a like these flutes. It has like a whole vibe down there where you're just like, where the fuck am I? This is amazing. I want to just go down there and like grab a bunch of like knitwear and like just go hang out more. But I'm super jealous that you get to live that like on a daily basis because it seems like it'd be fun just to like live down there and like go bounce around from like kind of city to city.
and this is also while being on the same time zone too, which is part of the beauty of it is that you're going to this place where it is like a completely different culture and that, but exact same time zone. So when you're running an online business, it's pretty ideal, right? I don't know if maybe it's not as much of a culture shock as if you went over to like India or like like Thailand. I've been to Thailand, which pretty big culture shock. I'd say pretty close, like a like Colombia versus like Canada, the U.S. You know, versus yeah, or Canada versus like Thailand. Pretty close in that, right? Um, You go to a place like Thailand, though, it's like if you need to take any sales calls or do any meetings at all, good luck with that. You're gonna have some weird schedule where you're taking sales calls at like 9 p.m. at night or something like this.
Yeah, I love Thailand and Bali. Although I've seen like a lot of weird shit happen in Bali. There, that one adult actress, Bonnie Blue, I think, got in trouble there, or she got deported because like she was filming over there or something, and someone
Really?
told on her, and she had to like bounce. But you hear stories about like the Balinese, I don't know, government throwing people in jail for like weed and just like really small crimes. So that kind
Mm.
of shit kind of scares me. Some of those like I've been to Bali and I've been to Thailand, but some of those things I definitely have to be a little bit more mindful of when I'm traveling to places like that because last thing I want to do is get like in jail for like smoking weed or something stupid like that. Because in California, it's so in Canada too, it's just like weed is like alcohol. It's like not really a big deal. But in some other places around the world, like you can get in serious fucking trouble for weed.
Yeah, it's actually crazy to me that like there are still obviously states and cities and all this in the United States that are like that where weed is still illegal. Like, because
Yeah.
man, I, for me as a Canadian, I have to go back so many years to the point where it actually was illegal. Like I'm going back as far as maybe being like I think it started to shift when I was in my like late teens or something like this, right? Um,
I think a lot of our
when
weed comes from Canada, or it used to. I think a lot of our weed used to come from Canada, but I don't, it's all changing now. I have a friend actually that owns like a weed company, and she has like a $700,000 distribution center down in like Long Beach, and she was saying it's fucking hard to make money in weed, like literally, like it's like nearly impossible. Like you, because it's commoditized to the point where like everything is super regulated. They want to know there's a program called Metric, which knows exactly what's in it and the cannabis, and they test it and they kind of trace it from like plant all the way up to like selling it. And she was just saying that the weed shops, you just don't make any money because like a lot of the times it's just it's good
oh,
for the consumers, but it's not good for the business part of it.
so that's like weed shops, right? But then there's those like was it the grow operations that like those stocks used to go absolutely crazy and they probably still do all those like cannabis stocks in this like oh they were probably making like individual strains of it. That
I think that
obviously
there
was super profitable, right?
I'm sure that there's different ways to make money, but yeah, she was telling me that it's just like in her business, it's called Jane, and it was marketed towards like women, and they make like joints and pre rolls and gummies and all these different products. But she was just saying that like to make any like you can't make any money from these shops. I'm sure that you can like
Okay.
if you're other. It just sounded like an awful business. So, like I don't know,
I
like
think she's in the wrong part of the business. She
probably.
she's just in the distribution part of the business where she's selling it for probably for very small margins. Probably the real money comes from being the growers because I think I've heard that the growers actually do make like very good money. Like you remember like we like cannabis stocks and this you obviously you've
Yeah,
heard about cannabis stocks just
yeah,
like
sure.
skyrocketing, right?
I had a couple back in the day. I don't have any anymore, but yeah, I know what you mean though, for sure. Like some of these, because a lot of people, she was betting on the fact that it would be illegal. Ahad just said he lives in Texas, so no weed
Yeah.
there. But like apparently, like she was betting on the fact that it might become legal, and that would help out the business. But I see this actually not from her as well, but other people in other businesses that like have like I have a friend that owns a trucking company and has like 10 trucks, and he was saying that it's like nearly impossible to like make. And he's a good business person. Like he knows how to sell. He knows how to like charge. It's just that like when people see a shipment, they're like, I don't really give a fuck how you get it from point A to B. I just want
Mm.
it there with a good price and safe. And like if you're in that position, it makes it real hard to like make money. And yeah, I think that we're really fortunate that like I think that like is once you hit like a certain level of like audience, I think, and that you have like proven validated offers, for us, I think it's a matter of time and going out there and finding people that we could help out with those offers, but getting that initial thing. I'm just glad that we're in profitable businesses and not dealing with something like that where it's kind of like a race to the bottom.
Yeah, yeah, sometimes it's a good reminder to look at other business models. Because maybe it if you really knew the inner workings of something like that, like shipping whatever, like something with like maybe really tight profit margins, where you're just like totally just considered like a commodity or whatever. Sometimes it's a good reminder to look at some of those, and then you compare it to your own business where maybe you got like 60% profit margins or something like this, right? Or maybe even potentially higher. It's a good reminder. But I was actually telling my brother this the other day. I'm like, everything is challenging. Like every business, every opportunity has its challenges. So even something like ghostwriting or what you do with video and that, they all have their challenges, right? And maybe something with ghostwriting is that like still to this point, like not like a lot of people don't know what ghostwriting is actually. They would know what ghostwriting is maybe from like writing a book or something like this, but a lot of people don't know about what a social media ghostwriter is. So it's actually still, even though people talk about it being like saturated in this, the truth is there's a lot of people who would actually just need to be educated on what the heck it even is.
Yeah,
So,
that makes sense. You wrote a post actually, I think it was a note the other day that was kind of cool. It was about like not being able to have access to your currency or credit cards. And you're like, how could I like in
oh,
this foreign country like make money if I had to?
oh
And
yeah.
I'm sitting there going, I'd probably be just like homeless and like getting kicked over on the curb or something. And you're like, maybe I could sing, maybe I could do this, maybe I could write a post. And I thought that was cool because it got me out of my own like sometimes I think that like when I'm stuck, somewhere where I feel like I'm in this catastrophic uh point of view or whatever, that like I feel like in my head I'm never gonna get out of that. But I think that in your post you had this nice ability to create some motion and not overcomplicate things and be like, I could do this, this and that. And then it was kind of inspiring just to look at because I think that I don't know, for whatever reason, maybe that's a fear of everyone, but like just not running out of money and not having a support system, that scares the shit out of me to the point where I think about it to the point on a weekly basis. So I don't ever, well, I'll never end up there because of that reason, because I'm thinking about it ahead of time. I never want to have to rely on anyone or rely on, I don't know, just not having money. It's kind of a fear.
Yeah. Yeah. That was kind of just it was like a thought exercise or something that I was doing just while at the airport because I knew that I was kind of like, I was in the home stretch where everything was obviously going to be okay. Right.
Yeah.
I knew that I had just like 3 to 4 hours to go before I was going to be boarding my plane anyway. But it was this whole scenario, man, where I had a 12-hour layover in this Bogota, Colombia airport. And I basically, and then as my flight got closer and closer, then it was like delayed. It was delayed by an hour. And I was waiting at this gate that like for so long, for hours at this gate A14, where everything was supposed to like that was supposed to be the gate and all this. And there was some other flights where there seemed to be a lot of confusion and the different staff at these various airlines were like hunting people down, like going around like and they were asking people like, you going to Newark, you going to Newark, you going to Dallas, right? And asking them this. And I wasn't hearing any mention of my flight to Toronto. There was no staff going around trying to hunt people down for that flight. And then I started getting, and this is where things got bad. Then I started getting a little drowsy, right? To the point where I was kind of like falling asleep and like I had my phone in my hand. And this is when you know you're getting tired is like I dropped my phone out of my hand a couple times, like just onto the seat or whatever, right? So I was kind of like going in and out of sleep. I should have said in that moment, I should have been like, all right, get up, get moving, go to the gate, ask what's going on or whatever, right? But I just started kind of like going in and out of sleep around about the time where there was about an hour before my delayed flight. And right in that like last hour or whatever, they switched the gate, right? And then when I woke up at like 12:30 and the flight was supposed to be at like 1 a.m. or whatever, I then check my
Yeah.
email. I see two emails have come through. They switched the gate in the last moment. I didn't hear a single announcement about that gate change. I didn't hear my name being called, nothing. And then I checked the email and it's like, you have to be at the gate 20 minutes before the flight or otherwise we won't let you on and all this. And I went to they then changed gate. I went to that gate and she wouldn't do anything for me. So I turned
Damn,
it into an entire newsletter with like three
that's the
different
worst.
three different lessons in it and everything. And it's like now that I'm back home in Canada and all this, and this was like maybe uh 5 or 6 days ago. Now the like everything's well in the world in this, but yeah, it was actually pretty the whole thing was like pretty stressful and just like, you know, very energy draining. But also Bogota, the airport in Bogota has this like unique thing where they have these like sleeping pods, and it's called like their wait and rest service or whatever. So you can sleep there in the airport without having to like go to some hotel or anything like that. So I rented one of these sleeping pod units, and uh and it was actually like comfortable enough that I got like a great night's sleep, woke up in the morning like ready to go, actually pretty pumped up, knowing that I only had like, 5 to 7 hours left, and then I'd be in the home stretch back to Toronto. And yeah, the rest is
Yeah,
history.
the sleeping pods sound interesting. I remember actually there was one time I was going to Croatia and I had a damaged passport, and I was at LAX and they're like, "Sorry, we can't let you go." And I already had like booked an Airbnb with my friend. Flight was taken care of. I literally just had to eat it. I couldn't do anything about it because I had washed my passport in the washer and dryer. You could still
Oh
scan
yeah.
it, but they were just basically saying it's like damaged and we can't let you travel. And I can't. I guess I just have to eat it. The situations like that though, when they happen, it's so hard not to like just be pissed like in the moment or just like upset. Like not, you can't do. They were pretty much helpless. There was nothing I could really do about it, and I was sort of just had to like take it in the jaw.
I was so pissed in the moment. Like I said to
Yeah.
this girl who, like, this girl really did not seem like she she didn't want to, like, she seemed that she just did not want to help me at all. Very like cold, no empathy. I asked her like 4 or 5 times. I'm like, is there anything you can do? Right. Like, I'm like, how far is the plane from, that like loading bay or whatever? Because there was like shuttle buses over to that our particular plane. And she tried to tell me that it was far away, right? And I kind of wondered about that. I was thinking in my head, kind of like calling bullshit on that. And I think she may have lied to me because then when I finally accepted that she wasn't going to budge, and she gave me a ticket for the next flight that I could catch, no extra charge, which kind of means that they knew that they kind of messed up a little bit with the delay, with the gate change in the last minute, all that. So she had a ticket already ready for me. And then I just was like, okay, I had to accept it after asking her 4 or 5 times. So I went, got away from that area, went and sat down in another area, and I look out to the tarmac, and I see this Avianca plane. It was with Avianca. See this Avianca plane, and I'm like, "Are you?" I, it's around 1 a.m. when that plane was about to take off. I'm like, I bet you anything that was my plane. And she just told me, "Oh, it's very far, sir. We won't be able to do anything just because if it was within my view and just like 400 feet away, it's like, what do you mean you can't do anything? Like get me some sort of a quick shuttle over there. I could still get on this plane."
It's so amazing. It's so amazing that people just sometimes don't have any empathy and don't really care. And I think that that's the part of it is just accepting that, like, when you're in a shit situation and just letting it go and like moving on is probably one of the better things you could do, even though it
Yeah,
sucks.
and I know why she wouldn't like. I know why she wouldn't show empathy in that moment too, because it's like they have been through these scenarios before, I'm sure, and they know that if they show any empathy, if they budge at all, you'll probably press more, right? If she's
Yeah.
like, "I know, sir, I'm so sorry," blah blah, then it's like, "Oh well, come on, you have to do something," like because you feel like you're like you're winning her over or something, right? So she was just like very cold, very dismissive, no empathy. Yeah. So
Damn. Curious, like if you were like, I know you already have a bunch of clients or whatever, and you're killing it or whatever, but if you were to like, let's just say come January, February, you wanted to go get new clients and not focus on the ones that you already have, what do you think the quickest way to do that would be? Would it be through DMs? Would it be through writing? Through just reaching out to people? Like how would you go about doing that for people that aren't quite there yet?
Mm. Uh, well, actually, yeah. So the quickest way to clients, well, the first part of this answer would be more for somebody who has kind of already been like in the game a little bit. So I'll start with that. It's that I think you'd want to like look through your entire list of people that like people that you've helped before, people who were maybe close to becoming a client but didn't, and go through that list first of all, and find people where they might have been on the fence, they took a sales call with you, they didn't close, or people that you actually maybe even have worked with before, and see if now is a better opportunity. Go through like your sort of like your warm list, which actually is something that I'm going to do like very soon. Is I've already been doing it a little bit, but contacting all the people that were like on the fence, people who you did a sales call with, people that you've already spoken to, and this is actually the perfect time of year to be doing it too, because it's like, what about all those people where it's like it wasn't the right time? And then like one thing is about like January, and that is that that's when a lot of people's budgets reset. So whether you're talking about like the big corporate CEO founder, or you're talking about the more like lean, say like an agency owner or a coach or consultant or whatever, it's kind of the same thing for both of them, where the smaller time coach consultant with like big profit margins and a lean team, the reason why they're thinking about, oh, who should I go with for marketing in like 2026, they're thinking about that now, and they probably make their buying decision in January. It's for them, it might be more just thinking about that new year. Sometimes it's even kind of like New Year's resolution based, almost like what are my goals for 2026, and how am I going to get there? That's what that's what like that like smaller time coach or consultant who has like big profit margins, and that like the say high six figure like coach consultant, that's probably their how they're thinking. And then like the multi seven figure like CEO founder, he's thinking about that because their budgets actually reset in January. So I my the thing that really made 2025 actually my best year in ghostwriting was that I hit it hard in like late or like hit it hard in December 2024 and January 2025, and also had content that really just like killed it for me, and kind of like just generated a ton of traffic, like the right kind of post getting like 60,000 impressions and generating 40 inbound leads.
Yeah.
That was really what just like rocketed off my business in early 2025, and led to like milestone month in January, and then another milestone in March. Yeah.
So that one that popped off like 40, 50,000 impressions and 40 leads, like what do you remember what it happened to be on, or like what? It's been a while
Yeah.
probably, but
Oh no, I 100% remember exactly what it did. It was a guarantee offer, right? Guaranteed 1,000 followers per month. I think at the time I was also I also promised 150,000 impressions per month as well, which was just like
it's a lot.
kind of just stacking on top of it as well, right? So,
Yeah.
and then what it did is it had a carousel, and the carousel was sort of like a very step by step, this is exactly how we're going to do this for you, where it's like interview call, you know, writing 30 days worth of content, the feedback and revisions, then all the like scheduling, engagement, all this. So the carousel was like the step by step how we're going to do this, and like almost like deliverables. And then the actual caption was more, actually talked more about my own success on the platform, and how I'd had like a month, I guess in like December or something, where I think it was probably something like almost 300,000 impressions that month, and like some inbound leads, and then I walked people in the caption. I walked people through sort of like a 6 or 7 step. Here's what I would do if I wanted to like grow my brand on LinkedIn and generate inbound leads. So it's like it's almost like this post scratched scratched the itches of two different types of people. It's like it scratched the itch of like other creators, freelancers, copywriters, ghostwriters, of like a step by step how to of like do, do like daily outbound commenting, send, 20 connection requests per day, and like here's why, and all of this, right? So it was like it scratched their itch in terms of like this is exactly how you do it, right? So it would become something where like they would probably save it, or maybe like repost it, or at least read all of it, comment, all that. But then the actual carousel was this is exactly what it would look like if you work with me, right? So that's
That
probably,
blew up.
why it was able to get the 60,000 impressions and also generate those inbound leads. And it demonstrated a lot of authority too by explaining this is exactly what you do. And then after going through all those steps, I said, "Oh, hey, by the way, if that sounds like a lot of work, like, yeah, that's because it is." And that's exactly why people hire ghostwriters like myself. Um, so if you understand the importance of growing a personal brand, but you're too busy to do it yourself, reach out to me with the word growth, etc. Right? So yeah, that went very
You
well.
really put it on the line though. I mean, I admit from your point of view, I think 1,000 followers and 150,000 impressions, whatever it might be, for a month. It seems it takes a lot of balls to actually put that out there because a lot of people don't want to put themselves on the line like that. They want to like just like figure out a way to like make money without having any sort of like guarantee. And I think that that guarantee really worked in your favor, but it also kind of scares me as like a person that doesn't have all like the magic wand, knowing that like the person that would have to fulfill that would also kind of make me like a little bit nervous. Like, did that make you nervous at all? Like, and is that part of like maybe if an offer does pop off, maybe there is some element of like skin in the game for the actual operator?
Um, yeah. So does it make me nervous doing a guarantee? Well, I knew that we actually could hit those numbers for clients. Um, Especially like, and this is why like it was such a sort of like full stack offer. We did have to offer so much in order to do that for clients, like in terms of like everything from doing engagement for them, sending connection requests for them. But if you do all those things, all the things that were actually even outlined in my post, uh, then it's very possible. Um, but yeah, I have mixed feelings on guarantees, because there's plenty of people who don't have a guarantee who also um, do kill it for their clients, and who do kill it from a even a lead lead generation capacity as well in terms of like their own lead flow. But guarantees, and there's a lot of people who would say this as well. Uh, they work particularly well for like the cold market, because like how are you going to convince a complete stranger to choose your company? And sometimes the guarantee, that really attractive like irresistible offer with the guarantee and the risk reversal and all this, is sort of that way of capturing the cold market attention. So that's kind of why it worked too, right? Is that, and that's exactly what it did, by the way. It wasn't like it was converting people who were already part of my warm market, maybe some, but what it really did is it went out there and it just went to work on the cold market, where it was pulling in complete strangers off of LinkedIn that were DMing me, right?
Awesome. Yeah.
Unfortunately, that exact type of post doesn't seem to work anymore on LinkedIn. which is also
Mm.
probably why I'm so comfortable telling you exactly what I did because sorry guys, it doesn't work anymore. Sorry, Ahad. He could put out
Well,
something similar for AI founders. Otherwise,
I think I think it took a little bit of courage though to like you'd mentioned it popped off in the cold traffic because you had like such solid confidence in what it is that you were doing. Like you said, you put your head on the line. Essentially, a lot of people are not willing to do that and play it safe. And I think a lot of people probably do that because they get anxiety of like, okay, like great, like I now have these 10 clients, right? How am I going to go fucking make this happen or whatever? Now I have this like weight on my shoulders. You seem to deal with that pretty well. I get a little bit of anxiety personally, like with like client fulfillment. I don't really necessarily have guarantees. My guarantee is more like I'll give you 2 clips, I'll upload your podcast, and like it's up to you to go figure out like how to make this shit work for yourself. And my clients have had success. Like my homie Tristan, like I'd mentioned, like he closed the client off of 12 episodes of a podcast already, and then he already has a guy that wants to start like a business with him that's like worth tens of millions of dollars. So like to me, if it's a smart enough operator, if they get in the right rooms, they'll figure out what to do with those relationships. But I don't have as much faith in other people that are like there's some people that like you could walk them to the well, hand them a sandwich and like a fire and food, and they'll fucking still starve. You know, like they're just not meant for like business. I feel like so. I think that a lot of it too has to do with like, all right, are those 40 people that come in too? Are they going to be a pain in the ass, right? And are they going to only expect these certain things, and they're coming in from this optic as well. So I think it's smart to obviously go for the warm traffic first if you can. If I look back at my own history of like 150 podcasts, like 5 or 6 of my clients all came from the podcast. They were all like legit, already knew me, reached out to me to come on the show initially. Like one of my clients, Tyson, he actually reached out to me to come on that podcast and initially to get interviewed, and now he's one of my clients. So I look at it too, like a lot of these people already knew me and already had like warm relationships. But me, because I get in my head a little bit, it was actually kind of harder for me because then I was like, I know these people, like how do I charge them? Like how much should I charge them? Are they gonna feel weird that I'm charging like one of these people that I grew up with? Like I had like a lot of other psychological barriers going on in my head that I had to like overcome. But now it's like you kind of get over it and you're like, fuck it, just send the bill, send the thing, whatever they're having. I don't know. That part of like entrepreneurship is a little like hard for me personally, just like getting over like some of these mental it was almost easier for me to like pitch someone I didn't know than someone that was like a friend. And don't get me wrong, I wouldn't
oh,
pitch all of my
mhm.
friends. There was only like a certain subsection of people that I would actually hit up because I knew that they could use what I was doing.
Yeah, I mean, I actually do relate to that. I don't like hitting up like I don't like hitting up friends for
Yep.
like business and stuff, you know. Yeah, I friends is a little it's a little too close. I mean, I have actually done business with friends and stuff like this, but like the last thing I would want to do is like burn bridges with a friend just because you ended up being too salesy or something like this. And that's
Mm.
why I hate any business that is based around or has like I'm thinking of these two industries that I'll tell you about, but like businesses that are too focused on sell your warm market, like and the ones I'm thinking about are like multi-level marketing, like network
Mm.
marketing.
Like cut knives and things like that.
Yeah, I think like or like what's there's one like health brand.
Or like the
The name the names aren't coming to mind. Yeah, yeah.
Tupperware shit and like
Yeah, but let's call it so network marketing, multi-level marketing, or basically pyramid schemes. But and like I actually I can say this because I did actually try I did try a couple of those businesses when I was in my first like whole like 6 months of like 6 months to a year of like online business beginner hell. And I sometimes actually I realized because Talon put out a post about um how he had tried some like multi-level marketing business early on in his online business ventures or whatever or attempts. And I remembered that like, oh yeah, every time I'm talking about my initial online business attempts. I mentioned affiliate marketing, drop shipping, forex trading, and like start trying to start a just generic social media marketing agency with my buddy who was my roommate at the time. I mentioned all of those, but it's like, oh wow, yeah, there was also these two multi-level marketing businesses that I tried, and those are those are brutal because you eventually, I would hope that you come to this realization. You just come to the realization that like these products would never sell for these prices off of a store shelf, and it's just sort of like there's all these built in like margins within the product because so many people have to get paid. So it's like the for that reason it's the stupidest business. And if you really remove the products, which are maybe varying levels of like, they could be good, but maybe not, remove the actual product, and it's basically just like a pyramid scheme.
It's an interesting though thing too, that the amount value and like what people are willing to pay and what they actually pay is also interesting, and how elastic that is, right? Because like it's all right, like how much could you sell a piece of Tupperware for, or a knife, or whatever it is, like, and how are you making it seem like it's so much better than something else out actually in the market? And I think the same goes for even our own clients, that there's probably a lot more elasticity in the price if you have the right offer, the right positioning, and they have the right need for us to go in there and solve that problem. And I know from your own experience, like how do you know which ones are willing to like pay higher ticket? Like I know that you've closed some decent size, like the 4K account, for example. Like how do you know, um like how do you find those people, I guess, that are like that? And like how do you know that that was the right person, and that was like the one that would pop, versus like, okay, maybe I'm wasting time on that person and they're not going to close? Like how do you know which ones are warmer in your mind?
It's interesting because you've asked me that question like a couple times before as well. So it really seems to be like something that you must be thinking about that like quite a bit, eh?
Yeah, I think about it a lot actually, because I think prices are very subjective, right? Like you can go into like a store over here in LA called Kith and buy like a $200 sweater, and it's made in China or whatever, and it might be like a Rolling Stone sweater or something like that, or you might buy it at the Rolling Stones concert for $75, or outside the Rolling Stones concert for like $20 from some guy. So I always think that there's
Yeah.
different levels of these pricing matrices, and it usually does depend on the location to some sort of degree, and whether or not. So yeah, I think that the elasticity of offers is something that, yeah, I will always continue to think about, because I think that there's room there to like fine tune that.
Yeah, so multiple things, right? Of course there's like the sales navigator sales navigator way of figuring out whether someone is a potential prospect, or if there's a high likelihood that they can buy from you. But then there's also like if you just take enough sales calls, you start to gain an actual pulse on what the market can afford. And like when you state your price at the end of a sales call, how much resistance are you getting, right? Or are a lot of people saying yes to that price? Like there's also some people talk about like how if you're getting like 60% of people on your sales calls saying yes to your price, then it also might be time to like consider maybe bumping up your
Crazy.
price a little bit, right? Um, because you might actually be priced too low, right?
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that the first
in
the
in
first time.
January of 2025, I was actually kind of priced probably too low because I think I closed out of like say the 11 like really hot sales calls that I took within like this 30-day period or whatever, closed like 60% of them or something like this, right? So
Damn.
it's a high close
Yeah,
rates.
it's wild. Most of your leads, it seems like, been. Do you see leads coming in from Substack eventually too, or do you think that it's only like leads only living on LinkedIn, and Substack is more just for your personal, I guess, journey? It seems, because it seems like Substack has like more creators and artists and things on it, but I don't necessarily know if that's people that we're gonna be working with in the future. Not that that matters, but I'm just wondering, like, if that's the way you're seeing it as well.
Well, it does matter if you're mostly here for like to promote your service and that kind of thing, right? Um, but yeah, like I was happy to see that about a week a week or two ago, I did get an inbound lead off from Substack, right? And considering that like I
That's
mean at the
impressive.
time I was probably at like 130 subscribers or something. Now I'm at like 150 or whatever. For somebody who's at like 130 subscribers who's only been on the platform for like, you know, like just over a month at the time, if you're getting inbound leads at that point, well, what does it look like? What does it look like when you have like 1,000 subscribers? What does it look like when you have like 5,000 subscribers and that kind of thing? Although I think that what I see more of on Substack is people, I see a lot of people selling more like B2C products for like yeah, like growth courses or like maybe not just like audience growth, but also maybe like how do you actually monetize, right? So there'd be a big market for that as well. But 100% there's got to be there's people out there who need ghostwriters on Substack. I'm sure, right? If
Do
I'm
you think that
already
some of your
getting inbound lead now.
the couple things came to mind when you said that? For one, that you're already getting inbound leads at around like 100, 120 subs or whatever, which is pretty fucking dope if you think about it, right? Like a lot of people will overcomplicate things in their minds and be like, oh, I need like 5,000 subs in order for me to start getting leads or whatever. Like they have these like weird things in their mind or whatever. So it's really interesting that it's already working for you, which is um, really cool. I'm wondering too, do you think that you'll offer Substack services for people for your or other LinkedIn clients already that it's already there, like a maybe like a step up offer, or do you think that some of these people you might end up just building custom offers for people that see this moat on Substack and want to take advantage of that potentially for like the for the emails?
You know what I like about potentially offering Substack as a part of my service maybe is that it solves the very problem that I'm trying to solve right now, where it's like LinkedIn is not the platform that it used to be. It is really not. Just look at your timeline and what you're seeing in your timeline. And I've told you about this. It's like now it's like this corporate water cooler. Like it's a lot of just like funny conversations and that kind of thing. But like you're not seeing like a lot of business content in the timeline. Like you're probably not seeing an offer post pop up in your timeline, right? Um, and like there's a reason for that, and it's because like really, I sincerely believe that LinkedIn is pushing down and throttling anything that has to do with any sort of offer or any sort of strong CTA and that kind of thing because they want you buying ads, right? So with that being the case, it doesn't mean that like LinkedIn is now just a total like waste of a platform and that I with like 21,000 followers am just going to completely abandon it. But it does mean that part of the new strategy would be trying to get people off of LinkedIn maybe so you can get them on an email list and that kind of thing. And then maybe Substack is that perfect solution where and the beautiful thing about Substack is it's not just about the email list. Like it's also got a distribution aspect to it as well. And the organic reach that you get from these like Substack notes is actually pretty awesome. Like, because I've had like these aren't like crazy numbers to me because on LinkedIn I could hit these with my eyes closed, right? But like I've had notes on Substack that have done like say over 2,000 impressions and I only have like just over 300 followers and 150 subscribers. So it's that ratio of having a very small following and getting that kind of like traction and those kind of impressions is solid, right? Imagine what that looks like when you do have like 1,000 subscribers and that kind of thing.
It is interesting how like some of this stuff kind of happens naturally. Like we saw Talon move over to Substack, and like it seems like a couple people are like kind of newer, they go try it out and they report back to everyone and then get everyone hyped to go in there into that thing. And it seemed like Substack did a good job of doing that organically. I'm not sure like how they did that specifically, but it seems like they had like a really good value prop against LinkedIn specifically because LinkedIn walls your 20,000 contacts. My 10,000 contacts are like walled, right? There's nothing I could really do with them if like LinkedIn decides to say, fuck you, Jeremy, I'm done with you. Although like Substack gives you the email addresses, I'm not sure you could actually take those email addresses and put them in like Kit. I don't think that's actually like, can you? I'm not sure if you can move them or not. I don't
Yeah,
know
yeah.
like how that
No,
works.
no.
If
You
there's like
you
spam policies or some shit or
no, no, you apparently you 100% can. Um I see multiple people talking about that. It's like you can like there's this one guy for example I'm thinking of where he's I've seen him post a couple times now about like how make sure you're always exporting your list, right? Because even with Substack, like something could happen. You could you could get reported or something like this, right? So there is still that same risk of like the platform risk. You could get locked out of your account and that kind of thing. But Substack does give you that ability to export the list, which
yeah,
even
that
now at my level right now with the 150 subscribers, I should have absolutely do that. Like you should also do that too. I think you're at like 71 subscribers now or something like that.
yeah, yeah, I need to do that. Absolutely. I think that the list thing too is like one of those things where as a creator, like we all know that that's like the moat against like be like censorship or being deplatformed or whatever. So it makes 100%. It makes a lot of sense for us to be building concurrently on both things to have that safety net. I feel like otherwise we really don't have a safety net against LinkedIn because at the end of the day, LinkedIn doesn't really give a shit about us because they've gave us zero opportunities to make money. Right? It's not like they're sharing some sort of network share of like YouTube gives you like half the creator will make like half the profit from like AdSense when the ads are rolled. So a lot of these other and Substack will give you the email addresses and allow you to monetize. So a lot of these other platforms have done a good job of monetizing the creator to some sort of ways, whereas like LinkedIn has really given us no opportunity for that at all. The only thing that they really pay you in is like reach, right?
Yeah, and just the fact that they have like garnered or like built up that because they are like the professional platform, it is where all the it's just a network. It's like that's why there are so many CEOs, founders, and all that. They kind of like they really feel like they have to be on LinkedIn, right? And that's why there's so many of them there. So that's sort of like LinkedIn's proposition. And I mean, like, look at LinkedIn too. Not only do they say give you something like ad revenue, or like they don't give you that. Not only do they not give you that, but they
They make us
also
pay for it.
they charge you for certain features like Sales Navigator or Premium and all this, right? But it is what it is. I mean, it used to be so hard to even get into the whole like advertisement and marketing game to begin with. Like in order to in order to advertise for yourself, get into like to get like radio ads or television ads or billboard ads or whatever, it would have been like so expensive and there was probably like a whole bunch of hoops to jump through and all of that, right? So now it's like anybody can just get on these platforms and start basically advertising for free. So what are we really complaining about? But at the same time too, in a way it's kind of like never been easier to get in, but there is insane competition. Like there is a ton of competition. But you also can't be focused. It's also why you shouldn't like be too outwardly focused on just what everybody else is doing. You should sort of focus mostly on what you're doing, and it's never as saturated as what people think as well. Like you'd probably think that everybody's like in that sort of like podcasting and like interview space, or you probably know a lot more people than I do on say like a LinkedIn that are doing that. And I know I see so many ghostwriters and copywriters and freelancers on LinkedIn, right? It's almost sickening to me. But, um, but then as you really go through it, it's like how many of them are serious, how many of them will even be around in 6 months from now, and then you really realize that it's actually a much smaller pool of people than you think.
I'm I'm also open to paying other people if I have like a product that I need to push, and like you have like an email list, and other people have like I don't know how you pronounce his last name, but Peter Regina mentioned this
Mm.
on one of his notes recently that like he'll I think he's like taking in like if I read the note correctly, he'll like allow people to sponsor his like newsletter or whatever. And if you have, I know that that guy has like a good audience, and other people like him might have good audiences. I'm open to like giving ad dollars to other people like that because I know that they're going to have somewhat of a similar audience of things that services that we're doing. So it could be a little bit of that coming too. I think we're like maybe instead of us paying like LinkedIn, say we just pay other creators for distribution, which I already know happens anyways. I don't do it personally, but I know that other people in growth goes sometimes pay other creators for distribution. So I don't see that. I see that path continuing to happen.
Oh,
But even just
you
more
mean he will accept payment for, say,
like
if
a
you want it to
sponsor.
be distributed on his list or something like this, or is that what you mean?
Yeah, like I think like Justin Welsh does it too, like where you could
Mm.
pay for like a little slot, like at the very top. This newsletter is sponsored by Mike Bolton. Mike Bolton's a ghostwriter from Canada,
Oh.
da 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 da, that type of thing. I think that we're going to start seeing more of that. Whereas like certain people are going to hold like certain audiences, and then we could just kind of team up with them. Like Doug Kennedy, actually, I think from LinkedIn did something similar where you could sponsor like one of his newsletters. So I don't know. I think that something like that might be kind of interesting instead of like paying like a platform, just pay people that are already in the game to like go out there and like maybe that's an interesting way to get in front of people if like you have some ad dollars to throw at it.
Yeah, it's interesting. That's almost kind of like it's almost like it's exactly like billboard space in a way. Like if you were to say you pay Justin Welsh to be part of his like top banner or something, right? It's exactly like billboard space. He's got this traffic, right? And yeah, and you're paying to have your name, your face in that spot, just the same way you would pay for a billboard off of a high traffic highway, or road.
Yeah. Yeah, it's there's only so many Justin well I don't know. I mean, I actually wouldn't mind talking about him for a couple of minutes. How do you think that he blew up so big? I know he's from LA too, and like it seems like his thing just blew up. Like he was at the right place, right time on that LinkedIn period. I don't know when what that was, maybe like 3, 4 years ago or three, I don't know, somewhere around that time frame. It just seemed like he just took off somehow. And I don't know if it was because he was kind of initially early on the whole like fuck W2 thing. They're just out to get you, da 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 da. And he created this like kind of like model for like us against them type of thing. And it sort of like took off for him because like a lot of the times too, like I'll reread some of his posts now and I'm like wondering like how he stays like ahead with such a big audience because I think a
Yeah.
lot of those ideas are kind of more played out now than they were back then.
Huh. Yeah, so like numerous things. Okay, so number one, I think part of his thing is that I don't know exactly what he did before this whole solopreneur thing,
He was in
but
SaaS software.
yeah, like he was some sort of like was he a CEO or was he just
No,
high up?
he was working at a company called Patient Pop, which is over here in
Mhm.
Santa Monica, and he ran like a sales team of like maybe like 60 people. And I think he
Okay.
went from like burnt out chief
Yeah.
revenue officer to like to one person $10 million business. And I think that the thing that he did smart is
Yeah.
he really hooked some big numbers and put his ass on the line on some of these things. So maybe that's part of it because like people aspire to be that. I don't see myself in him at all personally. Like I see Justin and I'm like I don't see myself at all in him. But I
Yeah.
respect what he did and what he's done for the market. But it's just interesting how some people take off and others don't.
Yeah, so I think that like number one, he had sort of that credibility and of coming from the corporate world, but then he's got like his whole thing is he's got that transformation story, which I don't Like I don't like I've never been like a huge Justin Welsh fan enough to like know his whole story, but he has that transformation from corporate into that solopreneur type role. Plus, he had actually like really kind of done something in that corporate space, like you're talking about managing the 60-person sales team, this and that. So, like, he gains credibility and authority from that, but then he's an example of a person who stepped out of that and left that whole W2 space. And then, like, I think a couple reasons then for his popularity and growth and everything is that I don't know if he coined the term
Silver.
solopreneur, but he definitely made good use of it. So yeah, like
Sure.
I can't give him credit for coining it, but he definitely uses it a lot, and it's a huge part of his brand. And I think he's very good at cycling through the messaging. Um, and man, I've realized that that whole like W2 like 9 to 5 build a side hustle on top of your double W2 solopreneur space. That seems to be a very it seems to be a pretty huge market, but also I think a lot of people who are on these platforms like LinkedIn and Substack and really paying attention and consuming content and stuff, they want that exact thing that he's talking about. Because I've seen it. Like there's another guy on here who actually I think was on our last call, and his name is like Jack W, right? And he's a
Oh, yeah, I know
ghostwriter.
Jack. Yeah, yeah.
So he writes about this exact same thing too, where it's like he's still got that 9 to 5 job, but he's doing the ghostwriting on top of that.
Building the moat.
And like it seems to be a very popular angle because I've seen some of his posts too, where I saw one of his that's like going like viral right now. It's got like 620 likes or something like this or more. And it's about how like I'm building my LinkedIn to 10K. I'm building my Substack to this. I'm starting a podcast, while still working this job. And then it like flips to because if I ever get like laid off or fired, then I'm not going to be one amongst like out of a or in that mix of 1,000 people all with a chat GPT written resume. I'm going to have a personal brand. Like that angle um seems to be very popular. Like, and I'm kind of disconnected. I can't really I can't really talk about that unless I'm talking about my past because I've just been out of that like that corporate 9 to 5 W2 job or anything like that for so long that if I'm talking about it, I'd be talking about 10 years ago when I left a job because I just gotten two clients in restaurant marketing and I just left my job and never looked back, right? So for me, it's just talking about the past. For some of these people, I almost envy it in a way because they're able to talk about it like right now, where they're doing this whole side hustle thing, or they just left the 9 to 5. But in a way, I also don't kind of envy it too because I like that I've been out of that
Oh no,
world for
you're fortunate that you've been out of it for longer. But I get what you're saying. Like it's
yeah,
not somewhere where you could draw from unless you're doing it from a place of like the distant past or like
just
you're
the past. Yeah,
or I guess you could write about it, like talking about that version of yourself at that time period. Be a cool like newsletter or something like that, and relating it to how some of these other people are using it, and not you're not being able to use it as much. But I also found it hard. Like I was in that position too. Like last year, like I got fired. Well, even further back, like last year, I got fired. November was my last real like corporate job. I was a podcast producer. I was kind of like the monkey behind the scenes. Like we were using StreamYard, and I worked for this tech company, and I would bring on like Nate was the boss. I'd bring on Nate. He'd do his spill, talk to the camera for a while. He'd bring on his guests. I'd roll commercials. I was kind of like the monkey in the background, like doing these things and then cutting clips and shit like after or whatever. He ended up like, I think he got annoyed with me because I was talking too much. Like he didn't like, there's a weird thing with like, I think certain CEOs and certain founders, they don't like it when like you're taking attention away from them. And I think in some sort of ways, I was like a threat to some of these people because even at the company before that, I was working at the software company, and my personal brand started getting much bigger than the CEO's personal brand, as yours would too, because we know how to write, we know how to get in front of people, whatever. And there started becoming this jealousy thing, like, and I think I mentioned this too, where he started wanting more control over like what I was writing about, wanted me to write about what was going on at the company and all this sort of shit, and like kind of trying to tell me what I could post on LinkedIn. And I told I contacted HR on him and then ended up eventually getting fired. And then my personal brand saved me, got me a job. I think like 2 days after like getting fired or whatever, and not even having to like apply. So I totally get where all these people are coming from with like Jack and these things, but it's also tricky too because when you're in that world, like you're kind of pissing off some of the players that are there, right? That's probably part of the reason I got fired at both of those places was because I had a big mouth and because I was kind of like a loose cannon to them where they didn't know how to control me and they didn't like that to some sort of degree. Even though I wasn't saying anything bad, I wasn't going out there and like I just edge for whatever reason for these people is just like it's not something that they don't like the when they can't control you and control what you're doing, they get a little annoyed with
Oh,
like what's going
one
on.
hundred percent, 100%, 100%. I was uh I was always kind of a little bit of that guy. Even when I was even when in some jobs I did like quite well. Like I can think of this one sales job where I sort of was like what was like the one of the like top sales guys in this and had a good relationship with my like manager and all this. Even in that one, I was kind of still the guy who was like not easily controlled and
Yeah.
you know, would break certain rules that I just thought were like stupid or kind of just like too I don't know, tedious or whatever, um not important or whatever, right? Uh um but oh god, there was something I wanted to say. Oh, I love that you went to HR, right?
Mm.
Because you were thinking that HR was going to help you, and we
Well,
spoke
fuck
about
about
this
you.
on one of our last
Yeah.
lives. How it's like what you end up realizing is that HR is definitely not on the side of the employee, right?
Boy,
Like
not at all.
they're serving the corporation, and you went to them uh,
For
to
relief.
confide in them of like this is what he's doing and this and that, right? And it's like, oh, that's oh wow, so sorry to hear about that, Jeremy. Yeah, like yeah, well, don't worry. Yeah, we'll help you out with that. We'll figure something out there.
Hey,
Fine,
Cameron,
you know.
we have Jeremy in the room. You're about to get fired. that
We come to the realization that you're not where you're just not in alignment with the company. Yeah.
that happens a lot. I mean that is a risk that these people are playing when like and I think it's good because it makes for good content. But you are playing with fire to some sort of degree. If like you, and I think that's one of the reasons I hated working for people. It's because I always felt like I could never like really be myself without having to get like in trouble or having to like watch my words or like who am I going to piss off? I told you this on a live before. I got in trouble for wearing like a Peanuts T-shirt to like a Las Vegas party where I was like hanging out at this party, and it was after hours, and the main guy at the party was the CEO from our business partner, and I was actually friends with the guy. I interviewed him on a podcast, so they were welcoming there. They liked me and they were cool with me. But because like I wasn't gonna play the game of wearing the company t-shirt at the party, like I was like kind of like an outsider. Like I wasn't willing to play ball and they didn't like that, I think.
Yeah. Just over
Mhm.
a peanut t-shirt. Wow.
It's
Imagine something that's actually like offensive. Um, you know, but
yeah, I think some of it's control. I think that sometimes like these CEOs just want complete control. And I think that that's why I'll never and you've already been out of it for 10 years, but I think that's why I'll never ever go back to that world again just because I don't like people having power over me, especially one person, right? Like at least if you go out and close 20 ghostwriting clients or 10 or whatever it might be, like at least one could fire you, two could fire you, and you're still fine. Like you can go replace those ones that are gone. It seems like distributed risk is less in entrepreneurship. Although, yeah, it is hard to survive the not having consistent paychecks and money coming in while you're building. At least when you actually build and you have a layer there, it'll build on itself over time. Whereas the portability of like each job, you're fucked from one job to the next. Your relationship with your manager at your old job, great. That might have been good for there, but it's not going to help you moving forward, most likely.
Yeah. So something I was thinking about just there for a second is I put out this post and it's interesting because like there's a few things going on and it's a lesson in social media too cuz like you can put out a short form post and not like give a whole bunch of context as to exactly what you mean, and some of those ones will just skyrocket, right? They'll get massive engagement because you're not explaining yourself. If you
Yeah,
don't explain yourself, like if you go line by line and after every like hard statement, you explain, but here's the nuance of what I'm talking about. That's going to be a lot more like acceptable because you've like made like an argument, and even people who disagree with you will be like, okay, well, I see his reasoning there, and then like that's kind of how you might write like long form content where it's like the argument is very like based throughout and you give reasoning for why you're saying each thing, you know, the why behind it and stuff, right? But I put out this post, right, just like in the morning, couple days back, and it was on anonymous accounts, right? And I don't know if you ended up seeing it.
I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't know if I saw that one.
So it was like anonymous accounts, right? Colon, and then like no face, no work to show, no skin in the game. Yet they've got like the most opinions on what other people are doing. Funny how that works, eh? Right? Or
Yeah,
uh, and it's interesting too because, and like I didn't necessarily, I knew obviously that that was going to ruffle some feathers, right?
right.
But what I didn't fully anticipate, but it makes perfect sense because it's Substack. Because there are definitely a lot of people who are on Substack to like write like long form newsletters and articles, just kind of like either for like their personal as a personal outlet, or they've got a lot to say on like topics that might be even like, you know, very controversial or like heavily censored. So it's like it's a much less censored platform than like obviously than like a LinkedIn, and it's more like a Twitter or something like that, right? So there's a lot of people who write like long form stuff in like really like controversial like topics and niches and all this, right? And interestingly, like I kind of so to explain the nuance, I actually kind of like, well, number one, a lot of those same topics that some of these people would be writing about, I mean, I think those topics are like super important. And in a way, I absolutely want there to be like, I no, I 100% want there to be anonymous accounts, right? But it's what it is what I was specifically talking about is trolls who hide behind anonymous accounts,
Yeah,
right? And just use it to talk so much shit and say things that they would never say to somebody's face, right? But it got so misconstrued in like me being some sort of like some sense like pro censorship and like you know like and people bringing like, oh yeah, you want there to be like digital ID in order to have like a social media account. So it's so funny how things can be so misconstrued. But all this talk about like corporations, W-2, 9 to 5, like working some job. If you were working some like 9 to 5 job or working in the W-2 or working for a corporation, and you still want to be able to like write about these subjects, I can 100% understand why you would go anonymous. But it's like so many people also just use their anonymous status to be a little troll and talk shit. And that's what my post was about.
yeah. I think that if you're, I don't even know how they would gain status being anonymous because it seems to me like, yeah, like unless you could see the person, it's like I'm not really going to probably listen to them, so to speak. But it's interesting though, like you said the context part of it. Like it's almost like they didn't what you said was not what they interpreted it as. And as a writer, I'm becoming more okay with that being the case and not having to explain myself on like what I meant to say. and just okay, that's great. I put that out there. That's what they thought. That's not what I meant or whatever. And I didn't mean anything about like fucking like digitalized social IDs or whatever the fuck they're talking about. So like, do
Yeah.
you like not have to, as you've gotten like more, I guess like used to this kind of stuff, you kind of just ignore it and just kind of keep on moving, or do you still like want to explain yourself out of curiosity?
Yeah, so that's actually something I realized with social media writing like early on, because when I say when I first got into ghostwriting and this in growth ghosts and writing on Twitter at the time, probably my go-to um instinct or like would be to explain what I mean, but you can't write like punchy short form content if you explain what you mean, right?
Yeah.
So that's where like a lot of people get things misconstrued and they kind of also don't understand what you're doing. It's like you write a 46 word short form post where you don't over explain what you mean, and like it'll do well for that reason, is that it's kind of open to interpretation. So it's also part of the strategy, right? But if you then expanded that short form content where all you just said is like punchy statements, no explanation, you could turn that into a 2,000 word newsletter and expand on it and say exactly what you actually mean. So that's kind of the cool thing too. It's, it's all part of
Yeah.
the strategy.
I've had situations like that where I was like, oh, I moved to Austin like on a whim. And I meant like at a time. I didn't mean like right now, this specific point in time, right? Like I was, because for 46 words, right? I'm not going to go into details about this is 5 years ago, explaining the situation. I was like, I just dropped them into that situation about moving and not giving a fuck and going and moving across to some like new city. And I got messages actually on that day from like LinkedIn. Oh, you live in Austin now? I was like, no, like, like
I had
it's
a
funny because
similar I had a similar one where I said it in the email subject line or whatever, or the headline of the newsletter was like, I'm flying to Medellin to write or something like this, right? And a bunch of people, even like some family and friends were like, you're flying to Medellin right now? So, but that's, no, that's actually something that you have to learn to do, is to like, yeah, write like I actually love these posts, is like a little like 40 to 100 word story. Like try taking like a big story and condensing it down to like 30 or 40 words. Like flew to Medellin, didn't know what I was doing, something this, da 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 da. And you're able to tell this whole epic story in like 30 or 40 words that could then be expanded into something huge, like huge. I love that. And actually that's what I love about Substack too, is you can test that 50 word note. And if that 50 word note gets a lot of traction and stuff, and people really like that, now you can expand it into a 1,000 word newsletter.
Yeah, have you seen? I've heard of the South Park guys have this saying or whatever. Like a lot of like in basic storytelling, when you're doing like improv, I think they say this happened and then this happened and this happened and this happened. It's very linear and boring, like because it's like not like there's no like tension kind of happening with that. So those guys, I think what they do is, all right, like I flew to Medellin, but then I ran out of cash, right? That
Yeah.
they throw like this like little curveball every so often that sort of like it becomes this game of like Taylor talks about this too, like this game of opening and closing loops in some sort of art form where you're like you're leaving people like you're closing the last one but opening a new one, but in such a way that it keeps the reader sliding down that slippery slope, so to speak. So I think that like that thing is interesting, and I find that like going back to even like musicianship and things like that, like having tension is so important to like good like writing and art in general. And like sometimes I have to go back in there and remind myself, like, where is the stakes on what I'm trying to say here? Where is the tension? And is that in the story? Because that's what's going to make the story good to begin with, right? Like the thing that you talked about not having money, that's like very visceral because like everyone has that fear of being broke. There's something that happened recently where there's an old Nickelodeon actor that was found
Oh
like in
yeah.
like Riverside, California, like homeless. Like one of
Yeah.
his like cast members had to go out there to like help him out and get him on his feet. I think we all think about shit like that in our heads, like, oh fuck, like what if I just hit rock bottom and that happened to that guy or whatever. But I think that's what made it such a powerful story. is because of like that viscerality of being broke and not having money.
Yeah, I heard about I saw the video as well, right? And I remember him as a child actor in that television show, right? That Nickelodeon I forget what it was called, but he mentions it in that video, right? Um,
Yeah.
that video seemed to go pretty viral or whatever. I'm sure a lot of people even on this call probably know what we're talking about, but um, oh yeah. Yeah, thank you actually for mentioning that too, because that's so true, especially with like say fiction writing. If it just goes like and then this and then this and then they went here and then they went there, man, like that's the most boring writing ever, and you really have to watch that you don't fall into that trap, and that just sort of like linear and then this and then this and then this and then this. Social media writing can be a bit more like that, right? Because it's a lot about getting to the point, right? And then my client generated $90,000 in the next 30 days or something like this, right? It's just spelling it out, right? Being direct is often enough, right? If it's just a case study post, like, yeah, you could throw in a little plot twist. Sometimes the plot twist is what they were struggling with, or like the way you solved it could be the plot twist, but it's pretty direct. It's pretty to the point. But something like opening a loop, like say this tourist lands in Medellin or something, right? Well, you could say that okay, then he climbed up, he went up this hill to this Chinese restaurant that like overlooked the valley or something like this, right? But like, what if I'm just like kind of riffing here, but what if he found something at that restaurant, right? That opens a loop, right? And he finds some necklace or something like this that like, you know, then becomes a deeper part of the story later on, right? Or whatever it might be, but you throw in something like that to make it like just way more interesting and just serve the story much better than it just being like and then this and then this and then he went here and then this. So
Yeah,
you need plot twists.
I think part of the problem too is as new writers, when you're initially starting to write on like LinkedIn, like 50-word posts, at least my original part, I didn't necessarily want to talk about like money necessarily at first, or like a lot of the times too, like you kind of need to talk about some of these things. Like, right, if I go close like 100,000, I don't know, if you close like a $50,000 deal or something like that, like you'd want to talk about it. And that would get people to actually like listen to. There's a girl on Substack named Anna that's like a talks she talks about being pregnant and working like 2 hours a day, but then making like I don't know, like $50,000 a month or something like that. And you think that like when you see stuff like
Oh,
this, you're like, is this real? Is this not real? And I believe that she did it, but I think to some sort of degree, like from that position of like authority, it feels that framing feels weird to me unless I've actually done it a bunch, I suppose. Because I feel like it feels like not like bragging, but it does. But at the same time, like people are seeing that as hope, I guess. And like for the person doing it, it could come across a little bit as that, right? Like you're kind of tooting your own horn. And I don't think there's anything wrong with it because I think it needs to happen. But I also like wondering what your thoughts are on that.
yeah, I think I know exactly who you're talking about too. Anna, like last name begins with a C, like Coleman or something like this. But yeah, and she definitely does drop some like,
Like how the
some
fuck does she do
figures
that?
and this and
Yeah.
yeah, like 50, 50,000 this. Like it's crazy like how sometimes like people really do like really drill that messaging home. Maybe they're always talking about 50K a month or whatever, but it actually works for them, right? Because a lot of people want to build a business like that. And like, yeah, you're definitely tapping into something that like it's like where I mentioned, closing a $4,000 deal in a Medellin cafe. Well, the reason why that like performed well as a LinkedIn post is like even for a lot of people, that's a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of almost like shocking in a way, right? It's almost to the point where I'm almost surprised I didn't have like people in the comments being like, like, oh wow, like look at you, but I didn't have I didn't have people um calling me out like that, or because I mean I would have just probably laughed at them, truth be told. It's like, what are you gonna you're gonna make some fun of somebody because they're because they're doing well or whatever. It's like I had to work to get to the point where I could ever charge that,
Talk
right?
about
So
it. Yeah.
to me, like, yeah, so much trolling and shit talking and hate in the comments is just like comical to me. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think you've mentioned this before on, and we'll wrap up here in like 5 minutes, but you mentioned this before, like on previous calls, I think where like sometimes you might share something about like making 5 grand or whatever, and most of the time people are pretty chill about it. But maybe you're a newer creator and you're like, oh, I just made $10,000, but like that's the first time you ever made it, and the person sees that you were on the call, and you're like, no, oh fuck, no, I don't trust this guy. So I think that that is a hard cycle to get into as a new creator because you're like, how do I balance between not annoying my clients about how I'm doing success wise, but also like so they don't necessarily. I wish they didn't see those things. I wish they were like Substack acted as this other area where my clients aren't on, so I can kind of just fully talk about what's going on, like money wise, without having them like worry about what I'm saying. And like I always worry about just backfiring on me. I suppose is like like that whole like I'm talking shit. Oh yeah, you like that 4 grand? Well, I'm gonna take it away from you now. Like in my mind, I think that sometimes like that shit I'm thinking about in the back of my mind, but I know that you kind of need to do it as well in order to like just be in the game.
Yeah, it's interesting too. That's kind of also a byproduct of me posting on Substack now and kind of writing more like Substack first content is
Yeah,
that I'm doing sort of some of those bolder hooks on LinkedIn where it's like I can guarantee you like 6 to 8 months ago I I would have never thought to post this, post a story about, oh, that time I closed a $4,000 deal at a cafe in Medellin, like posting that on LinkedIn. It just was not how I thought in this. But now with LinkedIn kind of with it changing, with me not really seeing content, LinkedIn content, um, generate leads the way it used to and stuff. It's like, okay, let's try out some racier hooks. Let's just plug the Substack newsletter and lead with the $4,000 deal at a Medellin cafe, right? Because
I love
it's
that,
kind
sir.
of like
Personally,
LinkedIn is
personally,
becoming more top of funnel anyway. Like you can't drive business directly off the timeline anyway, so let's let's experiment.
I think that story is actually cool. I resonate with it a lot. I'm not sitting there going, "Oh fuck, Mikey, and how dare he say that?" I'm looking at like, "Oh, that's fuck, Mike could do that." I'm gonna go try to do it myself. That's kind of like the
For
word,
sure.
but it's hard. I think it's hard being the author though. Sometimes when you're in the weeds of that, of like, okay, I'm not trying to like flex here, and I see other people doing that too, where they're like, they'll have some big ass accomplishment, and they'll be like, I made like $100,000 last month, but the point of this is not for me to flex or whatever, and they'll say that, I think initially, I don't think it's necessarily needed, but it's something that it's a balance, I suppose, right? Like of like sharing and then like aspirational versus bragging, I suppose. And I don't look at you and either. I look at you as just sharing your work or whatever, and being aspirational on some of the stuff that you've done that's big. I look at you as like kind of like something that is inspiring, like a colleague that's doing big things. So like
Makes it more
thoughts?
attainable and all that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah, a couple things. Number one, if you say, and by the way, I'm not saying this to flex, it sounds like more of a flex. Sounds like more of a flex when you say that.
sure.
And then number two,
By the way.
the thing, the thing is, if you'd never have like specificity, like part of the reason for actually saying the dollar amount, right? That actual figure is that without it, what what are you gonna say? Like, imagine if I was telling that story and it's just like, I closed a deal in a cafe in Medellin. oh, cool. Like, was it for $15 or,
50 cents?
2000 or like what deal? Like what was it? Okay, so it was a ghostwriting retainer. That's still it's like, okay, cool, man. Like it was a $4,000 ghostwriting retainer. Like it's like, okay, now I'm like I'm hooked because of the specificity, right? So and also that's a thing with like ghostwriting, and it's probably a thing with what you do as well. It's like sometimes these CEOs and founders, they might not want to get into um, the specifics, but you have to find that nice sweet spot where they're comfortable with it and they understand why it's important, because you can't just say I built a big business, right? It's like
Yeah, there's nothing to hook
how
onto.
how big? Like
Specificity is one thing in writing. I feel like that's one of the like the thing that I always have to relearn almost. Like I always try to use specifics, but the more I realize it, like people love numbers and like they love seeing that shit in their head for whatever reason because it builds like a little mind map. I think because my brain starts analyzing things and starts going, okay, like if I just start thinking what's possible. Like, okay, if you can close one at four, I can close five and have a 20K month or whatever. Like that's how like my mind starts operating. So I think that that's probably part of it. And I have a client that's like that too. That like we've talked about him selling his business, going bankrupt, and then having like a multi seven figure like exit or whatever. And we've talked about that story a few times, and it comes up, and we hover around it occasionally. But in his mind, he's like, "Oh, we've told that story once. Like, I don't think we need to tell it again." And I'm like, "No, we need to like continue to like drip this out into the content because a lot of the times people are not going to just go, oh, like you wrote about that once, Tyson. Like you shouldn't write about that again. You know, we already heard that story or whatever. So like I think that that's like this like novelty thing that people have in their brains. Like, oh, I've said that once, I shouldn't have to say it again. But it's really not the
yeah,
case. I think with social media.
I think that that's another thing too. Sometimes CEOs, founders, our clients basically, which are it's the same ICP basically.
Yeah.
We have almost probably the almost exact same ICP, and it's like or ideal clients. Um, and yeah, I think like the ones who really understand why they're building a personal brand and how content marketing works, they get it. But there'd be some where it's like, yeah, they feel like once they've said something once, it's like, oh, we've done this one, right? But the ones who really get it, and like people like us who really get it, like you understand that you can focus on one part of that story. So say for example with your client that like went bankrupt, right? Or had all this debt, and then like the creditors came after him and this and that. Well, it's like you could break that story into so many different parts. And it's like one story could just be that day that the creditors showed up. Another story could be like that day where he had like where it all like just hit him like a ton of bricks, where he looked at his accounts and it's like he was in $725,000 of debt, right? Those are two very different parts of the story that have different like emotional weight, and like they could be turned into short form, medium form, long form content, right? So
Yep. Last question for you. So what are you most excited about? And by the way, I'll set this up for next week at the same time. And if we need to change it, we'll just message me and we'll figure it out. But
sweet.
what are you excited about for I know that you're coming off of 2025 on a real high. Like you've killed it. You have your business going, you're living in a fucking cool place, living a really nice lifestyle. I only assume more of that to come, even higher probably for next year. But what are you most kind of excited about for next year?
The thing I'm actually most excited for, I think, is writing this novel. It's I don't know, it's just that new exciting kind of like adventure or goal, right?
Right.
And like the idea of I'm probably not going to start the year in Colombia. I actually might go immediately back to Paraguay. Maybe in like mid-January or early February or something like this, and spend a couple months there. But then the plan is to go to Colombia, and I think it's really cool to be say writing a novel about Colombia, or Medellin while being in Medellin and observing what's around me and stuff. I think that's just really exciting to me, man. So I'm excited about that. How about you?
Yeah, man. I'm excited to grow Substack. I mean, I'm excited to grow the following up over there. I don't have any plans on writing a book. Maybe at some point in the future. Other than that, just getting like more clients on board and just continue to scale the business, and then also just not getting in my head as much. I suppose just not, just getting into the point of just trying new things and working fast and without thinking so much. I know that sounds weird, but like as someone that thinks too much and that like analyzes shit to death, I can easily like even like in music I can go into like the circle of fifths or whatever, and like you go in reverse, it's in fourths or whatever. So my mind like goes to these like very analytical places fast. When in reality, I just need to do the work sometimes without thinking so much, which is kind of a weird place to be in. But I know that about myself.
Would I be right in thinking, I think in the last couple months, have you really made some big strides in terms of like the mindset aspect of things?
I think so. Yeah, I think this
Yeah.
last couple months, yeah, hanging out like people like you and people from like
Yeah.
Earth Coast. I think part of it is like my background. Like I grew up around like hanging out with like professional skateboarders and snowboarders. Like that's like my background is like hanging out with people at that level of athleticism. That like one of my friends had like his own shoe for S. I had friends that were like in the Olympics for snowboarding or whatever. So like I tend to be around people like yourself and people that are like heavy hitters, people that are doing big things. I like to surround myself around with those types of people because at the end of the day, like there's that saying of like you're like the five people you hang out with or whatever. And I think that part of it is very true. And I think that like I don't look at anyone as any more talented or any more like better. We're all human beings, but like it's all about like our mindset and about the way we process information and about the way we approach things, I think. So I think for me, I just try to hang out with like positive people like yourself and people that are like doing things that I aspire to do myself so that I'm not and already in the game. We're all making money now and doing these things, whatever. And I think the hardest part was like making that first offer, that first dollar, that first podcast client, that first video client. And I think from there, it's like you kind of like have like notches in your belt after that, where you're like, okay, I could do this, I can make this happen. I just need to continue pushing forward and like realizing that even 2025, there was like a lot of success that happened in that time period. But I think it's easy to like just dismiss it because that's just how like our brains work. Sometimes it's just like, oh, like didn't get where I wanted to be necessarily, but there was a lot there. So I'm happy.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the fastest way to shift your beliefs is to surround yourself with people who already like with certainty 100% believe that like everything that you're trying to achieve for them it's like it's just common. It's like of course I can like something simple like of course I can make money online. Of course, maybe you're hanging out with some millionaire or something like this and it's like for him it's like of course I can make $1 million a year. Like
Yeah.
that's nothing for me. So and you surround yourself with a person like that where that's just like commonplace, you start to adopt that belief as well because you're like, well, my friend does that. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I think it's just being around like the right people, like the right psychology and just making shit happen. I think they said, hear me? Yeah, my AirPods just died, so I guess that might be a good time to roll up, and I'll
Yeah.
catch you next week.
Awesome. Okay, man. We'll see you then.
Canada. You
Take
heading
care.
back to Columbia?
Oh, when am I heading back?
Could you talk really quick? I can't hear you.
Um, I think you asked when I'm heading back, right? Probably like mid-January. I'm gonna head down to South America again. So yeah, man.
Hell yeah.
All
Exciting
right.
stuff. Well, cool, man. I'll set up this thing for next week. It was good times.
Awesome, man.
Thanks everyone who was on the call. By the way.
Yeah. Peace. Thanks for showing up. See ya.
Later.